Hey, now we're sisters the other way.
There you go.
Oh,
All
my
right.
heavens. Whew. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Catt Chat's Not Ready in Time. That's what.
Yes.
Oh,
It's my favorite show.
I am joined by someone I have a great deal of esteem for. Most drag queens in New York
Ooh.
City know him as Fantasy NYC. He is the one, the only, Jim Silvestri.
Hello.
Oh, hello. I am so sorry. I literally sprinted from the garage to get a bottle of water to run back downstairs. Said, you know what? I'll wear a B wig tonight. Why not?
There you go. Oh, it's
I'll
perfect.
wear I'll wear a B wig tonight.
Perfection. We match. That's what I was saying before.
We do match.
Yes.
I ended up deciding to cosplay as Jim Silvestri tonight instead
Perfect.
of with just the right amount of chest hair. Just the right amount of
There you
chest hair.
go. Just the right amount. Yes.
I am sharing this from my Tomcat page. As you know, Facebook just this new layout that they did.
Oh, they
I
screw you
have
up?
many opinions on social media these days.
I bet.
I have many opinions on social media. Did you see that they put something new in the stimulus bill that was like making it very difficult for streamers to like quote unquote illegally stream? That still confuses me. I'm not 100% how that works.
In the stimulus bill.
In the stimulus bill, you wouldn't believe it, but it's there. It exists.
That's bizarre.
Well,
Who knows?
I had posted a status saying like, why is all of this garbage being like, why not garbage? Why are all of these laws being put into these stimulus bills? It does not make sense to me.
I know. It's it's because Republicans know how desperate the people are to get anything, even if it's just $600.
Yes.
So they'll try to get whatever shit they can into the mix.
Conversation with Jim. I know what I'm doing. I'm a professional, is what I am.
There you go.
So, how did you come to create Fantasy NYC?
Well, I came to the whole scene kind of late in the game. Like I was late coming out. I was late doing everything that you're supposed to be doing. And finally, one day, like 10 years ago,
Yeah.
I drunkenly made my way into Boots and Saddle Tavern on Christopher Street. Tiny little old Boots and
You were
Saddle.
a coat check for Boots and Saddle, right?
Long before then. Coach Check was a much more recent development in my illustrious career. But in the beginning, I just had like a 9-to-5 job, and I would go to this little bar called Boots and Saddle on Christopher Street, which was a tiny hookup dive. And I would just go there, just to fuck around with guys in the little bathroom. And that was the
whole. Don't mince words with me. I get it.
Exactly. That was my whole thing, and that was fun. I did that for a while, and then all of a sudden, drag queens started to show up in the bar and perform, and I was not having that. It was not about the drag queens whatsoever. They scared me. They were loud. They were strange. All I wanted to do was just, play with dicks in bars, in bathrooms. So that really turned me off for a while. But then gradually I started coming back, and who were the only people that were really actually like nice to me and spoke to me and wanted to like know about who this weird guy in the plaid shirt sitting in the corner by himself was the drag queens. Because that's really what a good drag queen does, as it turns out, is she walks around and she meets people and she makes them feel welcome.
She works the room. That's basically what it is. Like the drag queen will work the room.
Absolutely. Victoria Chase was the first one that did that for me. Her name was. And she was the karaoke hostess
Yeah.
at Boots and Saddle. And then she introduced me to like the little Boots and Saddle bar family.
Yeah.
And so for the next few years, I only knew Boots and Saddle and Boots and Saddle drag queens. And a lot of
Yeah.
great drag queens did come through Boots and Saddle. I met Yuha Hamasaki and I met Roxy Brooks and the late great Sugar Pie Coco. And I
Yep.
learned all of these amazing different styles of drag. And I started to just get to know a little bit more about the vast art form. But I came to realize that I was afraid to go to other places because I didn't know what was going on in other places. I didn't know what the crowds were like. I would only just go to one freaking place. And so would everybody else in Boost and Saddle. They only went to Boost and Saddle. So I decided I'm going to research what else is going on in other bars on other nights. And so that's what I did. I took to social media and I just looked at what was going on in every single bar. And I made this big list because I'm just a list guy. What can I say? I've always been a list person.
I get it.
Yeah, right.
I'm very similar with lists.
Yes. I'm not very organized in any other aspect of my life. But I make lists. I don't know why. I don't even usually even do anything with lists. I just love lists. It's a strange illness. But there you have it. So I made this list. I'm like, I should do something with it. I should share it because there's a lot of people like me that they only go to the one place and they're afraid to see. I mean, it's New York City. You can't just go to one place for the rest of your life. You have to see the city. So I eventually used the list and started going out to these other places, seeing for myself what was going on. And then I shared it and I made up with this cute little name, Odyssey, because there was a magazine called Odyssey Magazine and I wanted to be clever. But then Odyssey Magazine immediately closed, so now it's just a stupid name that doesn't mean anything, and people don't understand.
I disagree. When I first saw the word Phodacy, I'm like, it's Greek. All the Greeks were gay. It makes sense.
True.
It made absolute sense to me, and I'm like, that is incredibly clever.
When you put it that way, yes, there you go. It is Greek.
Yeah.
And Greek to me. So that's what I did, and then gradually it evolved into me also interviewing people in the scene, and now I have these on-point interviews that I do 2 or 3 a week, and now I have done about 700 of those.
So
and I've done,
you went from not being associated with any type of drag performer to now basically being drag queens' best friends.
More or less, yeah. Well, it depends on who you ask, but certainly I try.
That's fabulous. That's absolutely wonderful. I'm really proud of you, Jim. That's wonderful.
Well, thank you. And now I yes, I am their biggest defender. And I was always the one when they would go and do something dangerous, like go up on the bar, I would run over them and they try to catch them. It's kind of ridiculous when I think about it. I was very protective of them. And when I thought that someone was being fresh with them, I would say, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'd be like that guy. But meanwhile, they were probably just trying to get a trick or something.
Probably.
It didn't occur to me till afterwards. Oh, maybe I should just let them do their thing.
Hey, listen. Sometimes you gotta watch out. You gotta watch out for the people that you are sworn to protect.
It's true. Now I'm a little more whatever. You can take care of yourself. And usually I'm
you learn, but that's that comes with the territory. That comes with practice and patience.
Yes.
You're always going to be the type of person to say, what's going on there? What's happening over there? Oh, it's the all right. No, I don't need to worry.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
you figure it out eventually.
You learn that type of stuff. So let's talk on point. What it sort of falls in the same vein, but what I don't want to say what possessed you, but what led you to start interviewing drag queens?
Because in the beginning I was just listing things, but it came to my awareness that I don't even really understand what I'm listing. Some of the events, the descriptions are so weird and opaque. I'm like, oh, what the hell is this? I can't just write these words. They don't make any sense. So let me quickly talk to, it was Erica Clash who went on to Dragula. She
Yep.
was my very first interviewee. She had some weird event. You know what? I'm just gonna like quickly just talk to her and ask her about this, and I'll publish it. And if you ever look at her interview, it's just very, very brief, talking about that one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's somebody else said, "Hey, can you do that for me?" And then I did it for that person. And then they became a little bit more involved about how did you start, how did you, and I didn't invent that. Certainly, many magazines in the city have done that. Many blogs do that. I do think I've done more of them than most of those magazines, and I've done it more across the board, like not just these 10 girls in Manhattan. I talked to the girls in Brooklyn. I talked to the girls in Long Island and Astoria. So I try.
You know, you make a valid point. There are only 10 girls in Manhattan.
Yes, it's that kind of. There's either 10 girls or 10,000 girls, depending on how you look at it. There's 10 gigs, put it that way. There's 10 slots and 10,000 drag queens. That's kind of how it is.
Which, you know, that brings me to my next question. What made you do like the Thought 100 and then the Thought 200 and now the Thought 300 this year?
So somebody, honestly, it was the owner of Boots and Saddle after we moved into the new place. He was kind of drunk. He said, "You know what you should do? Next magazine used to do the top 100 people. You should do something like that." I said, "Okay, that's not a bad idea. I have like kind of a big perspective about who that might be." And those magazines, when they did their little top list, it was always the same people because it's a very small circle. It's like, oh, I'm going to include the Brooklyn people and the story people. It's going to be so cohesive. And it turns out when you actually try to be inclusive, you can't just limit it to 100 people. So it became 200 people, and then it became 300 people. And now it's 305 people, which is just my little twist to it.
Hey, you're growing now. I'm curious. What year did you start doing this?
The whole blog, 2016. So not that long ago,
Not
but
that long ago.
yeah, it feels like a lifetime ago.
Considering the year that we're in right now, yes, it does feel like
Yes,
a lifetime ago.
yes,
Considering we've lived several lifetimes this year alone.
yes. Doing a nightlife blog when there's no nightlife has been a real trip. It's been very
I was going to say there's
challenging.
been how there was something that I saw recently. I want to say it was within the last week or so of a list of bars and locations that have closed down due to COVID.
Yeah,
And man, it is heartbreaking. It is
yeah.
so heartbreaking. There were in DC because I follow La Bella Mafia, La Bella La Mafia, and I
Yeah.
also follow Eddie G.
Mhm.
And Eddie Danger, I mean. And they were saying how like the Eagle closed, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, what bars have? When did Boots and Saddle close?
Well, the original Little Boots and Saddle closed probably 2015, and then the new Boots and Saddle, which is the largest place, which is now Playhouse Bar, that
Oh,
closed in 2017. It didn't last much longer than the old space. The old space was there for 30 something years. The new space was there for 2 years, and it just didn't work out.
that makes sense. Now I am curious how because I would love to become a part of New York City nightlife, but it
Mhm.
one COVID, two that is not a cheap train ticket.
No.
But I do know that there are plenty of venues like between Queens and where I am in Suffolk County,
Hmm.
that cater that have drag nights and that have a drag venue. Um,
Yes.
so how do you, as a nightlife connoisseur and a connoisseur of drag queens, how do you navigate those waters?
You mean like what would I tell a drag queen that wants to break into drag?
Sure. That sounds like a serviceable question to answer.
Okay. What I would say, they would have to do the competition. I'm saying this like there's no COVID and like everything's going to go right back to the way it was. Who knows What
Yeah.
it's going to look like in a few months,
No one knows
God
what it's going to
knows.
look like in a few seconds.
Right. But a drag queen should look at what the if there's any kind of like an open mic night, or if there's any sort of competition. And the competitions are really good for a young drag queen to
Yeah.
do, even if you never win, because you get to meet the other girls and you network. And when they get shows, eventually they'll bring you in to guest. The host of the show might bring you in to guest to her other shows.
Mm-hmm.
You might win little audience members and they'll subscribe to your Instagram. So that's absolutely what your first step should be. And then hopefully what you should also do, and what a lot of these girls do not do now, frankly, is you have to walk around in drag and show up to other shows.
That's
And
what was where the hell did I see that? I don't know if it was Boudoir or if it was
I'm
Cacophony
sure Boudoir did
or
that. Yeah.
certainly Seymour. I think it was one of the three. But they said the best way or the easiest way to get in is to show up.
Is to show up. And that's what a lot of people get very antagonistic about doing things for free. They think they're going to be taken advantage of. They want to be immediately respected and embraced by the community. And that's understandable. And it is a fine line to walk, because you don't want to be taken advantage of.
Yeah.
But you still, at the same time, you've got to put it, you're not unique if you're a drag queen in New York. There is literally 10,000 girls trying to do exactly what you're doing.
There's a drag queen for every light on Broadway.
That's right. It's just like any theater job. It used to not always be that way, but now it is. Now it's very competitive to get
Yep.
a drag gig in the city, and you gotta. These girls that have the 10 shows now, everybody complains that they're hogging all the shows, but they started working for free. I saw them. I would be sitting at the Ninth Avenue Saloon, which was a tiny dive bar, very not a drag bar.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly I'd see like Holly Day show up with a microphone saying, "Hey, it's the Holly Day show." Like, what? And it was like, it wasn't the Holly Day show. She'd just show up with a microphone and work maybe for tips or work for recognition. This is when she was just starting out,
Mm-hmm.
and it seemed bizarre, but she would just show up everywhere and do that. And now she's one of the top queens in the city, because that's what you have to do. You have to get in everybody's face and let them see you and respect you. There's no other way to do it. So people who start complaining, "I'm not going to work anymore for less than $30." First of all, A, that's pathetic. Second of all, B, well, you're never going to, you're not going to get started. You have to do what you could do. Wow, I talked a long time about that. Apparently, I'm very passionate.
No. Listen, I love hearing all perspectives.
No.
So you are not unfamiliar with criticisms. I mean,
Right.
this is drag. Everyone's going to be critical of everybody when they're first starting out.
Yes.
What would you say has been the how do you handle the criticisms that you get when you do whether you talk about the Glammies, whether you talk about the Thought 300 list, like how do you, Jim, handle the level of criticism that you receive?
When I first put out the thought list, I was just absolutely shocked. It was still the most shocking thing in my life when I put it out and got such a huge reaction, mostly positive. People like posting like what number that I didn't really think that anybody was going to take that seriously. Like what number they got, like that blew my mind, and I felt a little weird. I felt a little weird about it, because like I'm not really trying to quantify people like that seriously, So that was weird. And then some people got mad at me because I didn't include them, or I didn't put them on the list, and I felt terrible the first time it happened. But you know what? It brings a lot of traffic to my blog, and it brings a lot more viewers to my blog, which are ultimately looking at the list to see what gigs everybody has. So it helps everybody in the long run to have more eyes on my blog. And if a few people cry every year, that's tough shit. That's
I mean,
if I can learn to accept that negativity, they can deal with their shit.
it's interesting to see the dynamic between cosplay and drag, because they're you so in the interview that we had, you had asked me if there was really a difference between drag and cosplay, and I really have been, since we've had that conversation, I've thought about it certainly before, but when you ask that question, it's been on my mind constantly, and there really isn't a difference
No.
between drag and cosplay. It really comes down to the individual and how they decide to express themselves.
No.
If I want to express myself by going and wearing corsets and bras and tights and stockings and oh man, what the hell did I where, I was going for something. But if you have a specific aesthetic, and that is the aesthetic that you want to perform in, then go for it. Absolutely go for it. But when it comes to cosplay, it's that same mentality, but for a specific character.
Absolutely.
And
yeah, and with cosplay, like you're not really competing for gigs per se, right? I mean, I know you can be hired as a cosplayer to do things.
You know what? I'm glad you brought that up. In terms of cosplay, if you go to enough conventions and you compete and you put yourself out there, people will see you, brands will see you, spokespeople will see you, and they'll be like, we want them to be a brand ambassador for us, we want them to come and bring money and people to our venues. And that's how it used to work. And then COVID sort of came and mucked everything up for everyone.
Yeah.
But the mentality and the mythology of the both of them is very similar. It's dressing up in a certain way that isn't appropriate, I guess you can say, for everyday wear.
Right.
And I'm always one to appreciate art. I always appreciate art in all of its forms. Most of the time, we'll say, because there's just some art that just takes one too many liberties.
Absolutely.
But it's so fascinating to see the similarities between being a drag queen and being a cosplayer. And again, like, there are times when the lines are very blurred.
Yes.
But oh man, where the hell was I going with that?
Similarities.
We were talking similarities between drag and cosplay.
I asked you about gigs, and you told me.
You asked me about gigs. So yeah, it works relatively the same way. Like, if you go to enough conventions, or you can like email. I don't know if drag queens do this. I mean, I certainly wouldn't put it past drag queens to do this. But what some people will do is they'll email specific venues and say, hey, I would like to perform here. Hey, I have this really good idea that I would love to like have a conversation with like Vanadu or Megami or even Sissy Walken and just be like, hey, how did you create The Simpsons? How did you create the Pokemon show? How did you just having these sort of ideas? And virtual shows lately have been big.
Yes.
Virtual shows have been very, very big. And that's sort of where we can definitely, lead the conversation, because that's kind of how you and I started the conversation, basically.
Right. I was not sure what was going to happen with virtual shows. After when all the talks of the lockdown started happening, people were like, "Oh, we'll do virtual shows." I don't think anybody really knew what that meant. Because one of the reasons why I put Marty Gold Cummings as the number one person on my list is because I think she was the first one to do it in New York, at least. Virtual shows.
She's an advocate. She is a beautiful queen. She's an every queen. She's a Renaissance queen, I guess you can say.
Exactly. Yeah, it's true. And she figured out how to do it, and then other people jumped on board, and then gradually people started to really pay attention to how to do it well. And some Drag queens are very resourceful. They're not just it's not just makeup and hair and outfits. It was always about self promotion.
There are so many there are so many different ways to be a successful drag queen.
Yeah,
You know, I like like one of the things that I had said, I am a professional singer, I'm a professional actor. I look at someone like Lyra Vega and I'm like, this bitch is out here playing instrument, playing the flute, a
yeah,
professional dancer, professional, like triple, quadruple, quintuple fucking threat she is.
totally.
And I absolutely love and adore her. But it's just so fascinating to see it's survival of the fittest, really. It's
Mm,
survival of the fittest and those that can make it work.
yes.
And I think like it's one of the like I'm trying to make this look work. I have my gray wig and I
You
have on a robe.
succeed.
I'm
You
trying.
succeed.
I am struggling.
Success. There you go. And I'm doing. I have the whole Unabomber thing down. I'm
Delightful
setting.
and a
Yes,
sheer enchantment. 2 thumbs up.
absolutely. Yes, that is my reality. But yeah, I mean, like when you're a drag queen, you have to be your own promoter, your own director, your
You
own
know,
writer.
promoter,
So now
manager,
you
agent.
yeah, now people are learning how to edit and light and all that. So really, you're a one man show when you're a
Yep.
drag queen in
It's a
2020.
lot.
Um,
It is definitely not small, not small beans here. It is very challenging.
yeah,
It is very challenging to be a creative in this in this basically.
yeah. And some
Um
queens couldn't make the transition or just weren't interested in doing it, and that's fine. I don't think that's any reason at all to put somebody down or anything. But we also have to really celebrate the people who figured it out. You know, I really am in such awe of the people that are making this work. You know,
yep.
mm.
I feel it. I feel it. I
Yeah.
see it. I see Zeta House. I see Gilda Wabbit. I see
Mm.
who else do I see? I see Marty G. Cummings. I see Tony Homeperm, Alexis Flame, Bella Noche, Ivy Stalls, Annie Manilow. I see them all making it work.
Yeah. Well,
And
I know Tony and Bella have been doing this for a while, like before
yeah,
COVID. They've had their online shows, so they're the old hats at this, which is interesting.
they're able to edit.
Yes, yes, indeed. Yes, that's the
They're able
skill.
to do the editing.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but you know, it's interesting to see to just see this dynamic and this you know this shift in regime, I guess you can say.
yeah. You know,
And it's
every year since like 2016, with the New York girls, when they started taking a lot of New York girls every year to Drag Race, you know, starting with Bianca, but then by 2016 they got three girls and they got Bob and Thorgy and somebody else that I can't think of right now. But then they started getting three or four girls at a time, and they would go off to Drag Race and then go off and do the shows around the world, and then everybody else would kind of like move up a notch in the ladder. So for a long time, there was always this shift in who's doing what in New
yeah,
York, and that's starting to not happen, largely because of COVID. But also, there's just so many drag race girls now. It's not such a novelty anymore. And now, you know, they have drag race in Europe and in UK and other European countries.
novelty is born on. Novelty is
Yeah.
one. So I then ask this question to you: do you feel that Drag Race has has caused a sort of paradigm shift in the
Yes.
ranks?
Oh, yes. I mean, first of all, it gave, you know, obviously so much visibility to the art form. It took a lot of stigma away. Uh, I mean, I told you about how I responded to drag queens in the beginning. I was afraid of them. I thought they were freakish. I thought they were their own thing. I didn't know anything about them. It made me feel so uncomfortable to call them she. which is absolutely ridiculous for me to think of now. But
Mhm.
back then, I just had no exposure to them. I had, and if you watch that first season of Drag Race, they kind of walk you through it. They tell you right away, oh, we all call each other she, in and out of drag. It's just what we do it, how we do it. And then you get used to it.
Mhm.
So it completely just shifted that whole thing where drag was like this fringe thing that happened and only eccentric people did it. And now
Well, at one
that's the
point,
whole
drag
thing.
was just that. It was different. It was queer.
Mhm.
It was avant-garde. It was
Yeah,
art. It was everything.
yeah.
And now it's sort of like, how can someone will get me for this, but how can RuPaul quantify what makes a good drag queen?
Yeah, and it's not even just that. It's not even just RuPaul and her team, but what constitutes a good drag queen is really has now been shaped by straight audiences, by these young girls that
By
watch the
the fandom.
show.
By the fandom.
Yeah, I would never have seen an Aquaria 6 or 7 years ago, but now like Aquaria is the template for what a good drag queen is supposed to be now. And she's amazing. Like she's amazing. A lot of those girls are amazing.
Yeah.
They're good performers. They're beautiful, and that's great. But uh, that's not what originally what I was exposed to with the art form, and that's not what I liked in the beginning. I liked people that were funny, that had a very outrageous humor, that pushed the boundaries, that weren't afraid to be not beautiful or weren't afraid to uh, be that, be not too polished. So,
I mean, it takes a lot of work to be a quote unquote ugly queen.
yes,
It,
absolutely.
it it does. It takes a lot.
Yeah.
And I've had who did I have a conversation with? I forget who it was. But the two of us were talking, and they basically said the same thing. It takes a lot of balls to be an unattractive queen. And
Today it does. Yeah. I
I
think
think
so.
what they were doing, they were referring to me as someone who, impersonates B. Arthur, cosplays as Disney villains,
No.
dresses up as people that aren't classically beautiful.
Right.
And dress up as people that aren't classically like Tallulah Bankhead was not an attractive woman. She was glamorous, she was sophisticated, but she was not an attractive. Same thing with Betty Davis.
May West. Yeah.
To
May
see
West. Yeah.
say that one more time, dear.
May West too. Right.
Mae West was another example. Like these were glamorous, sophisticated, patrician women,
Mm.
and to see people try to impersonate. Same thing with Katharine Hepburn. Any type of like old Hollywood starlet, they were not attractive, but they had the same type of quality that drag queens have sort of adopted from them, where it was take
Yes.
no shit,
Right.
be as glamorous as humanly possible, and be authentic. And
Right.
that's exactly what these women were. They were incredibly authentic.
Yes. Totally.
And it's to see drag queens, whether they are impersonating someone, whether they are performing as their own selves, it's nice to see that same level of honesty and authenticity in a performance.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And that's cool to watch. And now a lot of these performances that these drag race girls take on the road are very polished, and they have all these background dancers. And I'm not going to tell you for a second that that's not a lot of fun to watch. It really is to see a girl like do the flips and have the cute shirtless boys in the back and the throbbing music and the reveals and all that stuff. That's a show. And
Mhm.
if I'm paying $30, that's kind of maybe what I want to see. I get that, but it's also I could also sit and listen to Coco Peru, talk about suck a dick in a bathroom in 1987 and be enthralled. Also, I love it all. I wish there was more of a variety and that people were exposed to more of that.
There there was a conversation I was having with Free the Drag Queen and Sissy Walken and J.W. Brown. This was
Mhm.
when I was doing Jackbox TV.
Yes,
Oh, I was
I'm
doing Jackbox,
nominated. Yes,
and it was a marvelous conversation because we were talking about how we should be working on building a bigger table, not a taller
yes,
one.
yes,
Because I feel like that's a very big problem when it comes to drag in and of itself.
yes.
Now I know that you are not somebody that does drag, but when I wanted to have this conversation with you, I knew that you would have at the very least some idea of what it meant to be a drag queen, considering
Mhm.
you are what is there's a specific term for it. Um,
Connoisseur, connoisseur.
not even a
Mm.
connoisseur. You've been surrounded by drag queens for so long that you sort of know that you're in the know. You're in the know of what's going on.
It as much as I can be.
As
Yes,
much as a cis white male would be able to do that.
right.
And it was really so fascinating to have this conversation with them because the conversation that I was having with them, I've had before.
Mhm.
I've had that same conversation before in creative fields, whether it's drag, voiceover, cosplay, art,
Mhm.
or any type of performative. There's always going to be these people that are like, no, 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 we can't have people like that in our community. Absolutely not. But
Right,
why are you discounting them? What is the point of discounting them?
right.
Their art is different than yours. That is
Yeah,
still a voice that should be heard. And
yeah,
it's so fascinating that the conversation is literally the same
yeah.
everywhere.
It ultimately comes down to the people that are going to hire the talent,
Mhm.
and it's it is asking a lot of a venue owner in Manhattan paying 10 grand a month for rent. It's asking a lot for them to take a chance on someone who's outside of the
Untried.
box, you know? It's asking a lot.
Mhm.
That's what everybody has to accept. And it's not fair to people that bring more to the table, but life isn't fair, And it's maybe not fair for the venue owners when they do decide to take a chance on someone, and I've seen it happen, it usually works out in their favor. That's the
Mhm.
interesting thing because people are like, wow, this is new. Wow, this is different. So it does work out sometimes,
Yeah.
often maybe in their favor, but it's hard to do. It's hard to be like, okay, it's a Tuesday night, you know, who's gonna show up on a Tuesday night? The people show up for the girls who do the flips and the splits and the giant hair and they're pretty, and there's no shortage of those girls that want gigs. So
No,
if
it
you're
is
not
true.
that, it's really hard. A lot of the people who don't fit into that box, the way that they get by is to create their own opportunities to go out to places that don't have drag, that don't have a neighborhood, and they
Mhm.
say, "Hey, this is me. This is what I do. You want to take a chance on me?" Those people will more likely take a chance on those outside people than like an established bar. I think.
There have been, um, from what I've seen on Long Island, because there is not a quote unquote gayborhood in
Right.
Nassau or Suffolk County. The closest thing that I could
No.
really say is like Babylon, but that's because of the eagle.
Right.
Um, and that's just I don't consider that a gayborhood.
No.
I feel that there are not as many venues on Long Island as there are in Brooklyn, Queens, or Manhattan.
Sure.
Um, and it's oftentimes very challenging to sort of find a
Mm.
place to perform.
Yeah.
So when all else fails, there's the internet, which I think
Yes.
has sort of given people definitely this brand. I don't want to say a brand spanking new opportunity because it's always
Right.
been there,
Yeah.
but this opportunity to create content, whether it be with just this, whether it be with a photographer in a floral park or a photographer, just something you're constantly doing. You're constantly using your mind to like create stuff that you can like show to the people, basically.
Totally. Yeah.
And it's so fascinating to see how much has happened in the
Mhm.
last couple of months
A
with
lot
what
has happened. Yeah. And
um
it's cool to see like people that I've known for a long time that did not have those skill sets, learn them and become good at them.
adapt. You
Yeah.
adapt. You
Yeah.
adapt to
That's really
change. The
cool.
change will adapt. The change will not adapt to you.
Yeah. I couldn't do it. I produced some shows, weekly, monthly shows in New York, in
Mhm.
the Odyssey brand. And I love doing that. And so I'm like, oh, I guess I should produce an online show. And I like sat down and tried to do it for 5 minutes. Like, oh, this is absolutely not my thing. I am the dinosaur. Is like this is too
A little
tedious.
bit.
But that's what you feel like. I'm sure that's what everybody feels like when they're trying to learn a
I have
new
seen my fair
thing.
share of dinosaurs.
No, I'm sure. But it was not for me. So that's the way it is. I have to wait for things to go back to normal for me to go out there and do my thing. So that's another reason why I'm so much in awe of people that have been able to make it work. I think that's
It's definitely been a challenge.
yeah.
It has 100% been a challenge, and I do not recommend um I do not recommend such an enormous shift if one cannot emotionally handle it.
Right.
One of the things that I noticed is that a lot of queens that once lived in New York, as soon as the pandemic hit and they knew that they weren't going to be making as much money, moved back home. And
Yes.
there should be no shame in that.
No.
And
No, not at all.
there should be no person alive that'll say, "Oh, well, they still could have figured it out." You don't know their life, so
Yeah.
let she who is without sin cast the first stone.
Yeah. I mean, listen, a lot of people, especially people of a certain age, are outcasts and they can't go home. So they feel a certain, they feel a certain way about the people who can go home. I think that's what it comes down to. You should, those people who can go home should not be ashamed. They should be grateful and we should be happy for them that they could do that. Hopefully they'll come back when they can.
In time,
Yeah.
I know a few queens personally that have been affected, and now they're it's hard. It's very
Yeah.
hard. And I
I'll tell
wouldn't.
you one thing that I get a little weird about, and this may be controversial, but I see some of these queens going to other states and doing shows in these COVID hotspots. I'm like, well, you knew what we were all doing here, and we all checked each other here, and you were maybe one of those queens that were all up in that. And now you're going back to where you're from, where the COVID is like wildfire, and nobody's wearing masks, but nobody's stopping you or checking you. It's not many people that are doing that,
Same
but
thing as with Fire Island. It's the same
oh
thing
yeah,
with Fire Island. That was a mess. That
that
was
was a mess. That was a
absolutely
mess.
that was an absolute mess.
Yeah, but at the same time, what did you expect? Obviously that was going to happen, right? I mean that was the least surprising
It's one of those
thing.
things where it's just like, please have an iota of common sense.
Yeah,
Just a drop of common sense.
yeah,
Maybe don't go to the beach
yeah.
during a pandemic. Maybe me to me, I have been home since March.
Yeah.
The
The
only
the
time I've gone
people,
out is to, like I said, go to the grocery store.
yeah. I've been home since like March of 2017, so it's not an issue for me. But there's some kids who are like those from the circuit kids. They just don't have that mentality. Like if they're not in a cluster of people, they're not alive. So you can't tell them to not do it. They're doing it right now. They're in a basement somewhere. It's happening whether we know it or not.
Where I didn't read the article. Foolish me. I didn't read the article. Where was that 160 person raid?
Oh, that was in Rosedale, Queens. That's it's trash.
My
But
question is
that
why?
happened.
What
Yeah,
purpose does that serve anybody?
I don't know, and it was like in a little like shitty like apartment, so like 116. It wasn't in like a huge warehouse. It was like in a little shitty space. What? Why would that appeal to anyone outside of COVID. Like that's
Mhm.
the worst thing I could possibly want to do with my life, and they're doing it during a pandemic. It's so bizarre, you know. I'm coughing just thinking about it. But
It's I am very proud of Cherries on the Bay. I was very proud of
yes,
oh, what was the other bar on Fire Island?
Cherries in the Ice Palace,
Ice
and
Palace did well by their Ice Palace did well by their performers. So Ice Palace did
to
well by their performers. Cherries on the Bay did right by their performers.
to be
Uh,
fair, I think the venues, even the ones on the Pines, everybody tried. It wasn't the fault of the
there was definitely a trying going on.
yeah.
It was the individuals in their specific houses
It
that were
was
causing
people in the houses. Yeah, I wouldn't really. I would personally wouldn't blame any of the venues. They tried very hard to do the right thing. It's just people, want to do what they want to do. What are you going to do? And it wasn't overall as bad as I thought it would be. I thought it was going to
yeah.
be like typhoid, but it wasn't. It wasn't that bad. Like there was that one horrible time, and then everybody got called out on it, and then it started to wind down a little bit after that. So that overall, they did pretty well during the summer, aside from that one really horrendous thing that we all know about. Oh. But what are you going to do? I get very anxious sometimes, and if
No, I get it. Listen, there's a lot of people that get anxious about this kind of shit.
yeah,
They Andy says, I was calling bitches out left and right, and he did. And he
yeah,
did just that.
I'm sure. I went to one bar when we were at the 25% capacity. I went out once in Brooklyn. I was very paranoid about it. I had my mask on. I sat with my little table. We sat away from everybody else. 2 drinks later, our masks were off. We were walking around. Me too. As paranoid as I was, I had two
Yeah.
drinks and
You get
everything went back to normal.
comfortable. You get comfortable, and then it's just like, all
You
right.
get comfortable, and people are like drunk, and they come up and talk to you. You can't hear them, so you go closer, and it's just like nothing. It's like nothing happened. It's like no time passed. So like after that, I realized I personally can't do it. I can't go out and socialize because I'll fuck up. So knowing that, I'm gonna stay home till for as long as I can. I'm gonna
But
stay home.
you at the very least can say, I don't trust myself to go out into the world right now.
Yes, that's
There are a
true.
lot of people that are just like, to hell with the consequences. I don't
They
care.
don't care. Yeah, yeah, they don't care
And that is a level of callousness. I'm sorry. I don't know how a person can live with themselves if they behave in such a way.
because they think they're immortal, and it depends on everybody's situation. I'm a little older, and I have to do a lot of caregiving of older relatives, so it's a little easier for me to rein it in because I understand what the consequences of my actions could be. If
Yeah.
you're like a 22-year-old, you're living away from home, and all your friends are 22-year-olds, you probably care a lot less about things than me. You're not thinking about the old lady that you don't know on the train, or the old lady that's bagging your groceries. You're not thinking about them. You're just thinking about who you know in your life. So it's easier to care when you're older and when you're more invested, or you have more people to care about in your circle.
Mhm. No,
So
it's true. That was one of the things that I decided on. So I have my mother is diabetic,
yeah,
and she is one of the main reasons why I have been like militant on not going out.
yeah,
And like I said, the only places I go are grocery shoppings and my cousin's house because
yeah,
I've been going to my cousin's. She lives literally 5 minutes away. I want to say her and Tony are equidistant
yeah,
from where I am.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I go there, I chill with them. I know they're negative. I know I'm negative.
Mhm.
So it's really just one of those things where I'm like, why can't anybody? I mean, I guess travel is hard to come by, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't totally understand the mentality. I sympathetic to it too for a minute. When that first Rona rave happened, like less than a month into quarantine,
Yeah.
and everybody went ballistic, like
Ballistic.
that shit crazy. I was one of those people. I that went crazy because that was so because we were all just starting to try and figure this out, and these fucking idiots were out there. Dude, it was just so insulting. Like that there was no excuse for that. That's just
That was insulting. We are talking about the party that was on the party in Hell's Kitchen, right?
yeah, yes. I think it was in Hell's Kitchen. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure. I believe it was in Hell's Kitchen as well.
no.
It,
I know some people that were there that I really like, and I don't have hard feelings against them now. I think if you still have hard feelings against those people, I think that's a little weird. I think we have to let
Mhm.
that go. I was very angry at the time when that happened, as
There's
well we all should be.
nothing wrong with being angry or being upset,
Yeah,
because these people are taking other people's lives in their hands, and they don't care.
yeah, yeah,
It shows. It really shows a certain level of callousness,
yeah,
and
yeah. That that kind of like leads to this other thing that's been going on, which is this kind of like nasty exchange that we're all having with each other now on social media that was always there, and that I think it was easier to deal with because like okay, snip 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 with somebody on Facebook one day, but then you go out and you see them out at a bar and you just kind of forget that happened because what's real is what's being said and done face to face, but
yeah,
now with everybody like canceling each other and all these fights that everybody's having, it's just exhausting, and there's no end to it. It's just you just keep piling on all of these. I've had to be like so careful, which is probably for the best that I be careful about what I say because when I go off on a tangent, I can say some stupid shit.
you have a very obvious brand.
No,
You have a very obvious brand, and you don't want to, you don't want to fuck up.
yeah, I don't want to alienate anyone. I don't want to, so I try to be careful about what I say, but I have like a dark sense of humor, and like sometimes I
You're kidding. I had no
yeah,
idea.
yeah, exactly. Imagine that. So so I have to watch what I say, but I've offended some people who I know that if I would just like go out and see them the next day, we would either talk it out or just like pretend that it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Well, when you just keep like piling on all this negativity, it's fucking with my brain a little bit.
Oh, you. Um, when the episode started, I don't know if any viewers or if you, Jim, heard. My mother and my sister were downstairs fumbling through something. I don't know if it was for tins or what have you. And it
No.
was really one of those moments where I'm just like, "Do hello? Like, is
Yeah.
what are you hear I'm talking to somebody. You hear I'm having a conversation with somebody. Wouldn't you think to say, let's try and keep our voice? No, let's talk at max volume. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But that is the reality for a lot of people where they're just like surrounded by negativity, and it's very hard to like pull yourself out of that mindset.
Yeah.
And
If you can't like interact like a human being, it's like it just feels like you're in a vacuum.
yeah,
It's depressing.
that is 100% exactly what it feels like.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't. I am sure that it is very challenging for other drag performers out there to be cooped up with, roommates they may not like, or family members that they may not like, or just be involved in this type of like negative soup when you can't go to the place that you know you'll be accepted and loved and supported.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just, man, it is a struggle.
Yeah. That's it.
Absolute struggle.
It's interesting when you hear people from like suburbia, when you hear them talk about restaurants and bars closing again recently in New York. They have a very different response. They think that that's like a very frivolous thing, bars and restaurants.
Yeah.
Well, you should just cook at home anyway. They don't understand just how important those spaces are, not just as an economy for thousands and thousands of people, but community.
It's gay church.
Yeah.
And, I feel like people don't give gay bars the respect that they're entitled to. Forgive me for quoting Mommy Dearest.
No.
But I don't think that people fully understand that. I was having a conversation with my family the other day. And one family member, because I won't name names.
No.
But one family member like was saying, "Oh, they're closing down the bars and the clubs again." Like, no, oh God, no in-house dining. And I'm like, yeah, I know a lot of performers who are like going to be out of the job, and like I got some weird looks, and I'm like,
No.
Trying to have a conversation with white suburbanites is a challenge.
It is. It's they can't begin to imagine that somebody would know someone that would really be seriously affected,
unless it has directly affected them. And this is something that I have been saying for a very long time. Unless it has directly affected a human being, they don't care. Unless it has directly affected them in some negative way, they don't care.
Yeah. And when you're out in little suburbia, it's very hard for something to directly affect you. It has to come into your face and then hit you, So yeah, that's the case for a lot of people. And it's funny, before COVID, there was like endless articles about how like Grindr is destroying the gay bar, and cell phones are destroying the gay bar. Everything is destroying the gay bar.
Common denominator, sure.
Yeah, exactly. And then, there's some merit that, if you're just cruising for ass and dick, then yeah, Grindr is probably eliminating the middleman, sure.
I have no problem with people hooking up. I have no problem with the alleged hookup culture that is very prevalent in our society and in our culture. I get it. Yeah. I have nothing against good dick. I'll be the last person to say that.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'll be the first person to say that I have nothing against good dick, but Grindr is not what's causing the end. It's not.
No, I think we realize. I think now we know that these spaces are important and have always been important, and Grindr was not taking people out of. It was not making gay bars unimportant
into a place where they could do that.
Right.
Granted, the safety is questionable.
Yes.
But at the very least, it gave people an option to do it.
Sure.
Where else are you going to get a down low husband but on Grindr? Come now, really.
Sure, yeah, exactly. But now you don't even have to, like, people who go to gay bars now, they're not even necessarily looking for dick, because they can get that in many other different ways. They're going to go see their friends. They want to see their favorite bartenders. They want to see their favorite queens, their favorite go-go boys.
So much more than
just music. Yeah.
Exactly. Craigslist Andy says, Annie, you hoe. We are at the 1 minute mark, so this is the part where I thank you, Annie, for sort of like bring us back to reality. Where can people follow you, Jim?
Please come and find me at thodacy.com. That links to all my social. I wish I had like a handy dandy tag that's on all my social medias, but it's a little bit anyway. Thodacy.com, THOTYSSEY, like how you see that in the little purple box. .com. That's where you find my site and where you can find all my socials. Work. That's right.
Thotyssey.
That is correct. I don't have my glasses.
I know exactly how to spell. I good speller.
That's good.
If you want to follow me, you can at That Tomcat on all forms of social media. If you want to continue to follow this show, you can on my That Tomcat Facebook page. I do upload to YouTube relatively frequently. I could always do it just a hair more. But join me next week where I'll have another fabulous guest on Catt Chatt. Jim, I want to thank you so much for joining me this evening.
Thank you for having me. I had fun. I hope I wasn't boring.
Not at all. Not at all. I want to have you back. What are you kidding me?
I'll work. Absolutely. I'll get a ring light next time so I don't look like I'm in the Blair Witch Project.
Oh,
That would be good. Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. That's my impression.
But thank you so much, Jim, for being on my show today. I'm very excited to have you back again. And I will see you guys next week. Ciao meow for now, guys. Bye.
Bye.